Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I'm Mr. Forest, and this week I thought I'd bring you a little episode, a little behind the scenes, behind the song, as it were. We did that back with some of Possible album, some of the Ram Dass album, and I thought it'd be fun with the new music for the deck of the Titanic album. I just released the single, Bird's Eye, and that came out on September 29th. And the entire album's coming out on November 3. And I'm very excited. And some of y'all might be thinking, I know when you release singles, it pieces together the semblance of an album. And perhaps you find that annoying. You're like, I just want to hear the album. But it's also like, you can imagine. And one, it's fun to have things unfold and unfurl. And also these days, content is sort of fleeting. And so it's a way of elongating our conversation with it and taking our time with each piece. And so one way to do that is I always love hearing what the music brings up in you thematically. And what's interesting, I suppose, about this record is it has quite a bit more lyrics. About, half the songs or so have lyrics. And in many ways have, dare I say, a more traditional instrumentation of drum kit, upright bass, piano, vocals, maybe a little synthesizers here and there on a few songs. Now, fear not, my friends, I haven't completely changed my sound or something like that. I mean, there are several deep, classic, instrumental, gooey, East Forest type tracks coming on this record that you will hear. Of course, there's like the spoken word with Duncan Trussell, which I thought was fun with the song So What, of kind of spinning on its head the notion of what, at least what I've done in the past with spoken words. So I'm just experimenting there, and I thought that was a blast working with him. But there's more. There's collaborations, of course, with Marieme on this, and Anna is on this as well, coming, another awesome track with Anna. And speaking of which, I'm playing in LA with Marieme on November 7th. So please, if you're around, come to the show. I can't wait to feature her and showcase her work inside the show. And then I'm also playing in Seattle on November 3rd, the day that the album comes out. That's a solo show. Can't wait for either of these. That's on eastforest.org/tickets. There's my little plug. But back to the song. So how did this come to be that I started exploring this kind of instrumentation? With a lot of records, it was studio records. I'm often thinking about something I want to explore. There's something that's kind of inspiring me sonically. Like, for instance, with Possible, it was more of me really wanting to dig into strings and record strings, write strings, work with an arranger, Lorna Doone, and just sort of a modern classical approach in that way. And that's what I was really digging into. And with this record, I stumbled into a process of working with a drummer, Jens Karas, who lives actually just down the street from me, and also upright bass player Owen Hoffman-Smith, who I've worked with before. He plays cello and upright bass. He was on the Ram Dass album playing a lot of cello and upright bass, like songs like Home, things like that. And he also played on the Possible record a bit too, I believe. Anyway, with this record, he did a lot. But it happened that most of my songs, or at least for a long time, often start with piano. And I record little piano ditties. Like, I'll come into the studio. If I get the pianos tuned, I'm like, all right, they're only going to be, in a fresh tuning for a while, a month or so, maybe a few if we're lucky, depending on the season. So let's record some ideas. Let's get some things down. And I'll come in here in the late morning, or in the morning is when I like to get this stuff done first, while sort of my brain is fresh before like other stuff can kind of take over the day. And I just lay down some ideas. I try to come up with some piano ideas, little ditties through improvisation. And sometimes that's solo piano, sometimes it's layered up. But in this case, I'm pretty sure what happened was I wanted to make like a pad with some piano. So that started with like a higher piano, like this little like looping higher piano, kind of like this. So that's definitely my upright piano because it has that soft, I like put the soft pedal down and get that. I love having that sort of quiet, soft piano sound. And it's basically probably a long loop. I like the loops to be kind of long, so there's just some variety in there. But when it's a background thing, I don't mind if it's a loop. I just want to it's about finding the right groove. So after that, I just thought it could use another little layer, and so then sort of kicked in, and I thought like a little higher thing on top of that. Was playing around with some ideas. Actually kind of like the almost percussiveness, like you can hear the reverb, like there's a low end in the microphones. Now, I don't remember exactly what mics this was. This sounds like my Charles Walter piano, which is currently down in southern Utah. And at that studio, they've got some cool, like, Coles. So I probably use the Coles, and I might even put like a U87 in the middle, so like 3 mics going through an API. Man, it's kind of nerdy, but anyway. You put it all together, and it had a nice kind of little rhythm and groove going back and forth. So at this point, it was just this. Sometimes it has that interesting turnaround like that, so it makes the pattern not be consistent on top of one another for too long. There we go. Dun, dun. So the next step after this was getting those sort of situated right, and then I thought it'd be cool, let's find some kind of chords, something to sort of carry the song. And I love working with chords because chords often carry, it's like the bedrock of the emotion. Just a simple, if it's the right chord change with the right feeling, it has the bob. And you can always put any kind of melody on top of that, whether it's vocal or something, you kind of see what it wants to be. But it's sort of like right now we just had sort of like a pad. And now I wanted to explore some chords, so I sat down and laid down some chords. And I'm sure it sounds like I had a click track or something, so that I could kind of syncopate the rhythm like that. And with this album, I had a click track because I was anticipating maybe it leaves the option to have beats to come in later in a much easier way if things line up. So from there, that's all it was. And then maybe I did 1 more or 2 more. I do like 1 to 3 a day, and that's it. You move on. And then I don't listen to it. The next day you do some more, the next day some more, and so forth. And then after like a month or 2 months, you might have, 30, 40, 50 ideas, and I'll go back and I'll start to then turn on that other part of your brain where you're listening, just seeing if anything's perking up your ears. And this one did, but oftentimes, maybe I'll make a spreadsheet and I'll put out they're often like dates, or I make quick titles as a way to just not just a bunch of dates. It gets very confusing. It sounds like it makes sense, but you almost need to understand, like, wait, was this one just solo piano, or was this like a beat I made, or what is this? So I just felt like it needed something more. Like it was just a groove. It clearly, sometimes they can live on their own and it's a piano song and like that's all it wants to be. But the motto is always, how do you serve the song? What does the song want? Like, I'm in service to that. And in this one, it wanted more. So I had other songs like this, and I started feeling like it'd be fun to work with a drummer. And I've been listening to some tracks out there that had, what are some good examples? You like some old Medeski, Martin and Wood. There was some African jazz, Afrobeat I was listening to, where it's like the drum kit was really focused on a particular drummer's vibe and sound. And I wanted a drum kit that not only was a great player, but sounded like a drum kit. Like it wasn't all perfect, or it had all the tonalities of a live kit. But more than anything, it had to have the groove. It's all about groove to me, particularly with drums. It has to have the groove. And that means like feeling. It just has to have the right feeling. So I was just kicking this around, but being in Boise, Idaho, as my base, there's not a lot of people to work with here on a professional level, and that sometimes is frustrating. Like when I was doing the possible thing, that was a struggle with strings. And anyway, eventually, I've told this story. If you listen, Jens Karras was on the podcast. You can go back and listen to his episode. It's really great. I tell the story of how we met, but basically, like, I think we wanted to go out and hear some music one night. Rod and I, we were just looking at what was going on, and I saw this Jens Karras is playing. I looked him up on Spotify as a singer-songwriter. I thought it was just incredible. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I definitely want to hear this. We went out to hear it. We went to this little club. It's the basement of the Karras. And it was a straight like jazz trio playing, piano, drums, and upright bass. I love jazz, but I was just a little confused. I was like, I don't know if this is the opener or we're in the wrong place, but I was down. I was like, all right, let's listen to some jazz. There were just like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 people there. And I'm watching this set, and it's good players. And I look at the drummer, and I'm thinking, that guy looks a lot like the dude that I thought was Jens Karras. And then I'm like, I think it is Jens. And then I realized, I guess he's jazz, or his project is now jazz, or I didn't know. But eventually we actually could meet, and I guess he does both. He has many passions. He's a sideman, he's a singer-songwriter, he's a producer, he's got this jazz band he runs. He's very skilled. And I said, look, man, I don't know if you're looking for any session work or you're down to like come over and jam. I just want to try some drums on top of some of these songs I've been working on. They're just sort of simple songs at this point, but I have some ideas. He was totally down. And it turns out he lived 2 blocks away. 2 blocks, which felt like kismet. So we set a date. He came over. We set up the drums. And I'll be honest, I have not recorded a lot of drum kit. Drum kit in the engineering and studio world is known to be very difficult. Why? Well, because if you think about it, each drum, every cymbal, it's its own little instrument. And they all have to be mic'd, and just moving the mics or what type of mic or how close or how the preamp is placed, all of that affects the sound tremendously. And then afterwards, how you process that sound with compression or EQ, reverb, and so forth. And then on top of that, every mic you place on it usually takes a lot of mics. I mean, you could do it with one mic, like back in the old days, go mono. But if you have a bunch of mics, they start to cause problems with each other, like phase cancellation and things like this. And this gets real tricky real fast by a magnitude that goes up by many factors every time you add a microphone. Well, I put 10 microphones on his kit thinking like, hey, I should just get a lot of coverage and I'll figure it out later. And we played through a bunch of songs, probably like 5. We did 2 recording sessions in the end, but this was our first one as an experiment. I honestly can't remember if this was in the first or the latter, but he would play around with ideas. I'd give little notes. I'm like, maybe more like this, or I like it when you go to the ride here, yada, yada, yada. And after much experimentation and work, we came up with a groove. And this is the groove. This is with processing. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that happened. And we came to this sound right after we hear a sample. So these are dry, just the mics. So I had all those 10 mics, right? And to be honest, it was really, really hard to mix. Like, eventually I was down in Utah, and I asked my friend Steven Camo, who helps me with all sorts of things engineering-wise with these forests. And I was like, dude, I need some help here. I just can't lock it in, the sound I'm going for. And I tried to describe this sound like mojo, but honest, pretty dry, and I've got all these mics going on. And we ended up just using the kick and the 2 overhead mics. That's it. Why? Well, one of them is because it sounded right, but I needed the kick for that kick. And the overheads were some great mics that I've had. I had these mics, these C12 replicas that I had Josh Powell, I believe his name is, in Portland, build them years ago. And they're tube mics. And I had them going through this nice chain of, I think it was like some 535s a little bit of parallel compression and some 542 Neve tape emulation. What else did it have? The preamp was either a Hardy M2 maybe, or a UA 710D, I'm not sure. But it had the mojo. That kind of fat, pillowy, tubey sound, you know, without being brittle. It's warm. Yeah, so I comped that together, and we had basically drums and piano. And now it was clear as like, I'm thinking like vocals. Like it's probably going to want some lyrics, or certainly in the name of serving the song, I should give it a try. I should explore. So I'll put it on, and I usually just kind of vocalize and make weird sounds and sort of see what words are coming out of that as a starting point. I think I had the bird's eye phrase. I had a couple other key lines. I mean, it doesn't always sound good. It's kind of like a mumbling. Of a techno dream. Keep the static down with the chemical crown. Keep the static down with the chemical crown. It's killing me. I mean, what's important there is like you don't judge it, and it's hard not to judge it now, but that you just let yourself make sound and be bad, be good, whatever. Just get in there and play. So I started to write lyrics, and eventually I was thinking, well, if you have drums and you have some other like instrument like guitar or piano, it's like you really need bass. You need something to hold down the low end like that. And the obvious choices are electric or upright or synth. And in this, I was just because I was so jamming on the acoustic of the drums and the sound we were going for with the drums, that I was like, I want an equally great musicianship and earthy sound with the bass. And I love upright bass. I love how Owen played on that song Home, the Ram Dass song. And it really makes a lot of the vibe, along with the Cuban percussion on that song, of what it is. So I reached out to Owen to see if he'd be down to play, and he was, and we worked out this situation where he came out to Boise from Portland, drove over. I remember he was super tired. I made him take a nap before we started recording. I actually did. And we worked him, and he did all sorts of upright bass on this, bowed upright bass, as well as cello work on the record. I mean, he probably played on 75% of the entire record. But this one, I comped together sort of a shape of the song. I believe I'd written the lyrics at this point, and we started tracking upright. I mean, I just dig the woodiness of the sound of that instrument. He's got the groove in there. I mean, you toss this in with the drums, and boom, groove, and a little piano. And that was that. Now I had to finish the lyrics, and lyrics are never like I find them difficult. It's like, surprise, surprise, that I make a lot of instrumental music. But the themes, it's like themes come up, and then you have to flesh it out into a song. And with this track, I think I was just that phrase techno dream, or was it a chemical haze or something like that? I was just thinking about like information sickness and sort of the way we're diving off a cliff. Let me look up the lyrics here while I have them too. There we go. And I had this one phrase, the 1 step forward, 2 steps back, which is the opening line. I think it's a cool opening line. The ground is shifting beneath these cracks. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. And a lot of this record, the reason it's playing in this with this theme or titled "Music for the Deck of the Titanic" is this notion of being on something that's falling apart. Like something is coming anew, but it's the only way is for something else to fall apart, and that's confusing at times. It's a death process, and dying typically is not linear or always what we think or clean or not messy. Sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's strange, sometimes it's beautiful. I think a world of emotions come up, and that's a lot of what we're all feeling. I'll just speak for myself. That's a lot of what I feel. So when I was digging into the lyrics, I like to write lyrics when I'm doing something else. It's like kind of tie up a part of my brain with a task like driving or something like that, and then put on the music on a loop, the instrumental, and just riff and try to let sort of the unconscious come through with ideas. And I think I did that here. And I had this chorus that was coming in about the bird's eye view and this idea of having perspective, so we don't just get lost in the weeds in a sea of information and in the fog. And where's the map? And some of it, I love lyrics that they leave room for interpretation. I mean, it's always metaphor anyway. And even if they're inspired or springing forth from feelings I have, it's intentionally meant to be almost like through the lens of a character, like the character of just being a human in on the world today, for instance. Or you might take a particular person's point of view. But this idea of a shadow spy, an evil eye that's lurking in our apathy, just sort of the idea that our own inability to make changes or choices is where the shadow is lying or where it comes into being. And the turnaround is, I couldn't tell you exactly what that means. To me, it just sort of means like things being tilled or being turned over like that. But I worked on that chorus, and it's not just the words, but sort of the rhythm that they have inside. And I love playing with rhythm inside a chorus. And this one, it does that, I think, in a really fun way. Where is my bird's eye? I lost my touch. Piano in here. The map in front of me. And it's a shadow spy, an evil eye. It's got a cool rhythm. It lurks between a wild apathy. With the drums. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. Yeah. So yeah, that's played around with the lyrics. I like the verse too, the keep the static down, a chemical crown, it's killing me, but somehow it's meant to be, the irony. I almost thought the line irony, I was like, that might be too much, but it's more like it felt okay because of how it happens rhythmically. Like it's a little unexpected, so what you think might be expected becomes unexpected, then I'm like, all right, that gave it a little more license, a little more room. While the world's in free fall, the brightness of the scenes we have to see, that's definitely relating to like screens, like how much, again, information sickness. That might have been a temp title for this. I wouldn't be surprised. It's killing me close to the eyes, but it will disguise the ceremony. That's sort of, again, talking about, through all the sacred and the profane, or the things, it might seem like a mess, that it's all divinity. And the dichotomies of that. Who do you think you are? It's coming true. Our fates are due. I think that speaks for itself. And then I tried to end. I like ending like with an outro that musically. This one is just sort of a refrain of the music, so it's your typical ABC sort of structure, and but give it a little outro melodically at the end. Turn it around. Bring our fortunes back. A sneak attack. It's the turnaround. It can turn around. So it's just like slight shifts there to change the meaning. I remember I sent this song when it was totally done, and I was talking to Bright Antenna, the label, and Tiffany, one of the co-founders, she wrote me and she said, did you use obfuscated as a word in your song? I said, I did. Intuition's gone these days, obfuscated by this haze, a techno dream. That's fun. I mean, yeah, it's sort of snarky, but it's like, or not snarky, but like it's intentionally, it's meant to stick out in a way. It's sort of like the intellectual and then meets the word haze and then techno dream. I don't know. It's fun for me. I think it's kind of fun. So you put all this together and basically had the song, and then it was about, of course, just mixing it and all that jazz. And I've this one's been one that I've always liked, but I don't know. It felt kind of, I like the simplicity of it. Just piano, upright bass, a drum kit, and vocals. Just a little touch of some percussion, that little tambourine thing. And I like it that it has space. And of course, vocally, I've gone back and forth over the years, a lot in falsetto the last few years, and I found a real home there for me of expression in all sorts of ways that I could talk about. And, that could be a whole other thing, like how that happened and why I like singing in falsetto and what that's done for me, or just what that process is like. But this is called chest voice, technically, and it's an area that I would say I'm less, what's the word? I guess less familiar with, at least lately. And that's a whole other journey that I could talk about. It's a very private journey about singing, and actually what led me into the East Forest Project was not wanting to sing because of almost like trauma I had in a previous band where I got really hung up on singing stuff. And I also didn't want to work with band members at the time because I was hung up on that too. I was just like, I just want to make music and get back in touch with enjoying making music. But anyway, I remember I sent this track in an early demo form and some other tracks to a manager I was working with at the time. I'm not now, but he wasn't as into this one. I think it was something about like the vocal register. And so, look, some people say that stuff, and so everyone has their preferences. I don't need to know them, so please don't tell me. But I also want to get back in touch with just who I am. And, it's sort of like use the gifts you've been given and be playful with them and continue to explore. So that's sort of why this one's like that. And if you listen to the chorus, of course, that's when the double comes up there in falsetto, and it just sort of spreads things out and gives it sort of a more lifted feel for the chorus. So that's a little background on Birdseye, which just came out. It's from music for the deck of the Titanic, which is my new studio record that is coming out in full on November 3rd, wherever you listen to music. And you can pre-order the vinyl now. We're doing some live dates November 9th in LA with Marieme, who sings on this record, like the song Cosmic Dance, among others that you have yet to hear that are amazing. And November 3rd in Seattle. And we've got some other dates up there at eastforest.org/tickets. I really appreciate you listening. If you have any questions, please send them our way on social media. We have been having some problems with the Facebook page, so just so you know, I don't have access to that right now. If you see anything weird, it's not me. But you can write us on like Instagram or just team@eastforest.org. Thank you for sharing the music. Thank you for listening. More soon. And we'll end this episode. I'll play you. This is the full mastered final track of Birdseye.
Step forward, 2 steps back.
It's a shadow spy, an evil eye. It lurks between a wild apathy. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. Yeah. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, double blind, can't see it all, while the world's in free fall. Keep the static down, a chemical crown, it's killing me. Somehow it's meant to be. Irony. Where is my bird's eye? I lost my touch, the map in front of me. And it's a shadow spy, an evil eye. It lurks between a wild apathy. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. It's the turnaround. Yeah. While the world's in free fall, oh, the brightness of the scenes we have to see. It's killing me, close to the eyes, it will disguise the ceremony. And who do you think you are? It's coming true, our fates are due. Where is my bird's eye? I lost my touch, the map in front of me. It's a shadow spy,